Would you like to be called the Punisher?
Whatever works best for you.
At the centre of this, it seems to me, is going to be the issue of consent. What is your view? I mean, do you believe this was all consensual? Are you 100% convinced that your son did not commit the shooting for which he's serving this sentence?
I'm absolutely convinced. I've always been convinced. There's been so much foul play. And I'm not just saying this as some sort of pissed off parent.
The evidence as of right now is showing that there are no bullet fragments that have been presented, which will let people assume what they will not.
Exotic dancer Sheree Hayes, better known as the Punisher, testified at Diddy's trial in Manhattan yesterday. He's also the author of a new book called In Search of Freezer Meat, and he joins me now. Well, welcome to Uncensored, Mr. Hayes. How do I call you? Is Mr. Hayes how you like to be called, or would you like to be called the Punisher?
Hayes, Sheree, whatever works best for you. I believe it or not, I get called the Punisher more than I get called my government name, so I'm fine with either one.
First of all, I mean, how are you dealing with the fact that, you know, you were pretty well unknown before this? Now everybody knows you as the Punisher. It's a weird thing to happen to you in your life. How are you dealing with that?
Believe it or not, locally, it's pretty still consistent. In the New York City area, I've been dancing like I testified to for 30 years, and I did reach a decent degree of local popularity. So it's pretty much still the same scenario for me in terms of interacting and people knowing me for being an exotic dancer. I think the part of it that's difficult is not the Punisher thing. It's I went from a dancer to male prostitute, possible escort, based on this scenario, which is not actually accurate.
The court heard that you estimated you took part in 8 to 10 of the Diddy sex parties, which took place exclusively in New York. Sometimes they took multiple days. They would begin sometimes at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. On the stand, Cassie Ventura detailed graphic sexual scenarios or freak-offs with Sean Diddy Combs. She took allegations of drug usage, violence, blackmail, even rape. At the centre of this, it seems to me, is going to be the issue of consent, as to whether she was consenting to all this as a willing participant in this. What is your view? I mean, do you believe this was all consensual, or do you think that, as the prosecution want the jury to believe, this was all coercion, control, and criminal?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm only privy to the circumstances that I was a part of, and as similar to I testified to, I didn't get any cues, didn't have any thing that would lead me to believe in the moment that she was under any duress or any forced scenario. It was presented to me that this was something that she wanted to create for her husband. You know, for the majority of the time I interacted with them, I believed they were a married couple, and I believed, based on me following them on Instagram and whatever interactions that I've seen, although minimally, it seemed like a normal situation. I didn't get any cues to it being a distressful environment.
I mean, people, you know, you say normal. A lot of people have been pretty shocked by the details coming out of this court case. For most people, I would argue this is not normal sexual behaviour, to call in and pay somebody like you, in Diddy's case, to come on and have sex with his girlfriend as he watches. Most people don't view that as normal. Other people might, right? So I'm not here to judge the normality or otherwise of it. But was there anything about what happened when you were there which unsettled you?
So I agree with you about normal. When I use the word normal, I was talking about the interactions between him and her, just as far as their scenarios. I didn't get any cues that there was some tension or an intense environment. As far as the sexual scenario, even with me being in the exotic dancer business for many years, that environment was very uncomfortable for me. It was something I was not used to, something that I'd never took part of in any type of extensive scenario. So it was definitely uncomfortable, but it didn't, at the same time, it still didn't appear, other than us trying to create this scene and some of the direction that I did sense some frustration. I said in my testimony, I saw her sigh at times and look frustrated at the cues and the direction I was given. Other than that stuff, I didn't see anything that was off. And again, even me mentioning it in trial, it was in hindsight, because if there were no allegations, I might not have read into it at all.
The first time you met them both was at a hotel room in Trump Tower, owned, of course, by the now President of the United States. It's on Central Park West. I stayed there myself when I did The Apprentice years ago. I believe Cassie Ventura, you testified, greeted you at the door in a bathrobe, and you were specifically told not to acknowledge Sean Diddy Combs, who was sitting in the corner. He was wearing a veil over his face, but you knew it was him, I presume.
I did not.
Oh, you didn't know it was him?
I did not know. I did not recognize her. And again, his face was completely covered to the degree where you could only see his eyes. So I was totally unaware of who they were. Actually leaving, I tried to do some Google searches, because obviously I understood that this was some sort of a prominent couple, but because she initially said they were married, I recall searching married couples, and I was going to draw a blank, because they're in fact not married.
You testified that the man was nude, wearing a Muslim-like face covering, and that he was masturbating in the corner while he watched you with his girlfriend, and that you said that Cassie and this man then left the room after about half an hour. When she came back, she asked you whether you wanted to finish. This was the quote used, and you declined. You were then paid an additional $1,200 and left the hotel. So at what point did you realize this was Diddy, one of the most famous rappers in the world?
I mean, embarrassingly, I have to say, this duration of these meetups went on from 2012 to 2015, and it might have been well over a year into interacting with them before I figured it out. And I never figured it out visually. And what happened was, we checked in a hotel they used called the Essex House. There was usually a waiting period before any of the sexual interactions would happen. And just killing time in a room that I was told to sit in, I cut on the TV, and the TV happened to have a welcome message, and it said the Essex House would like to welcome Mr. Sean Combs. And it was just like a holy crap moment. I was completely unaware. And even more embarrassing about it was, I followed him on Instagram. I I routinely saw his posts, and I did not put it together at all. Once
you realized, and it's an extraordinary way to find out, when did you let them know you knew who they were, or did you not?
I did not. I obviously I realized there was a long period of time with them hiding their identity. Cassie would try to wear wigs, which was kind of ineffective, but I didn't recognize her anyway. And, Mr. Combs went great lengths for me not to realize it. So I never said anything directly. But at some point, he took off the covering anyway and just started wearing a baseball cap, so I could visually see him.
I mean, that's a weird thing, isn't it? You see one of the most famous rappers in the world, and he is directing you to have sex with his girlfriend.
Yes, absolutely. Me personally, going through it, I remember making up my own stories, where I figured this was a scenario where obviously he's this famous rapper and he's gonna indulge in plenty of women, and this is his girlfriend, and this is kind of like okay, I'm doing all of this, so now you get an opportunity. That was a story I made up for myself. There was also a story that I believed at some point that maybe he, in fact, had erectile dysfunction. I had a situation earlier in my career, the only one time before, where I was propositioned to deal with someone's wife, and that was the circumstances where the husband had a sexual issue, and he was doing this to supplement his own inabilities. So I remember while this was going on, I had a belief that maybe that was going on with Mr. Combs. I had no idea that this was just more of a fetish type of scenario.
Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, and crepiness are just a few of the visible signs of aging. Also, I'm told. Fortunately, today's show is sponsored by OneSkin. Their topical supplements are designed to help your skin feel and behave as if it's younger, a bit like this. Founded by an all-female team of scientists, OneSkin is the first and only skin longevity company to target cellular skin aging with their proprietary OS1 peptide. It's scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with thinning skin. More than 4,000 people have given 5-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel-size products. OneSkin believes that skincare is not just to improve how you look, but how to optimize skin biology at a cellular level. Well, we've teamed up to give you a 15% discount with the code PIERS, P-I-E-R-S, at checkout. Just go to oneskin.co. That's co with no M, oneskin.co. Yeah, many people think he was very obviously bisexual, if not actually gay. I mean, do you have any insight into that from your interactions with him?
Not from my interactions. Growing up in Harlem and being into hip hop culture, there have always been rumors surrounding his sexuality. But I will say firsthand that I didn't have any experiences. The entire 2.5 years, I literally never had a conversation, never even had eye contact. And I don't think almost every circumstance he was across the room in a corner, kind of out of sight. I was instructed coming in to not look at him, acknowledge him, have any interactions with him. So in regards to what his sexuality and his preference would be in regards to me being present, there was so much distance, him being away, all of his conversation and interaction went towards Cassie that I can't speak to anything in regards to his sexuality.
When did it end, all this? When did you stop getting calls on them?
The last call I got was sometime around March 2015, as I testified to. It had been quite a few months in between since I interacted with them. And ironically, maybe 6-7 months before, I had a really bad injury where I tore my bicep. So in that last interaction, I was showing up after not being able to work out, not being to keep up my physical standard to what I usually, what they were accustomed to. And again, this is my own speculation. And then in that last circumstance, there was a request for me to have penetrative sex with Miss Ventura, that the pressure of the situation or whatever, I was able to not perform. So I assumed that the combination of me not being able to perform and physical condition not being up to its usual, I feared that would, I guess, quote unquote, get me fired from the interaction. And that ended up being the last time I had interactions with them.
Who actually organised this? I mean, who was doing the interactions with you, the payments and so on?
I only ever spoke to and interacted with Miss Ventura, from telephone calls, to text messages, to when I was greeted at the hotel room, to even cordial conversations before and after the sexual play I described. All my interactions was with her.
A lot of people have heard about these freak-offs. These are these parties which Diddy would have, where there would be various layers to the party, and then it would end up with a lot of depravity going on with a number of people. Clearly, you were engaged in a scenario here which some might think is a form of freak-off, but others might see as just a couple engaging in kinky sex. When you hear that term freak-off, from your experience, was there anything freaky about what you went through or what they put you through?
No, I would have to say in my experience, no. I had a similar belief, like, again, growing up in Harlem and in a culture where, Mr. Combs was very influential. The rumors were all about the parties and the layers to the parties and these big orgy-style sex scenarios. And that's what my assumption and belief was a freak-off constituted. This scenario here, I would use a phrase which is called cuckolding. And that's something that spoke about kind of commonly in regards to men and their wives and seeking other men to give them pleasure. I would say we are a bachelorette-themed company. My company, Hunkomania, that throws bachelorette events, and we routinely get couples that come in, and the guy is getting lap dances for his woman and enjoying her her pleasure and interacting with the guy. So it is something that I see routinely at the club, just not the next step of when it goes to a hotel room. That was the oddity to me.
It's interesting. It's interesting
so
because
I don't.
Yeah, I was going to say that the video we saw of him beating Cassie Ventura up in a hotel corridor is truly shocking. It's incontrovertible. He apologized for that. Clearly, he is a man capable of violence against women, including his own girlfriend. But the big question here is whether that level of violence and coercion and control became a crime of trafficking, racketeering, and so on. Are you surprised about the charges that he's facing? Do you think he is capable of what he's being accused of doing?
I am surprised. Me personally, I really did follow the instructions of the prosecution, where they told me to avoid a lot of the details of the case and testimony of other witnesses. So I don't have a strong opinion on his guilt or capability or whatever's going on. I like to remain an unbiased or not have any bias in my perception of the situation. I just think it's extremely sad. My interactions, I've tried to truthfully explain them and give and recount them the best way that I could. I expressed that I didn't see any violence or aggression or anything that would constitute what his accusations are. And I don't have a strong opinion either way, because I just really didn't hear enough of the facts. So I just look at it as accusations now. Based on my interaction, I just didn't see anything that aligned with what the charges are. But I'm also naive to the interpretation of the law.
I mean, Sheree, it seems to me that your evidence could end up being pretty fundamental and very important, because the picture you've painted is of something that went on for over 2 years, 8 to 10 encounters, and it appears that Cassie Ventura was leading all the interactions with you, with the calling, the texting, and so on, the payments, and that everything that she was doing with you appeared to be willing on her part, consensual, with Sean Diddy Combs sitting in the corner. And people might take a moral view about what they're up to, but from a purely reality perspective, nothing you've said suggests to me that she was being forced into this against her will.
Yeah, I mean, in transparency, I was first time contacted about my involvement in March of 2024. And literally up until, I want to say about a month before they told me I was testifying, I was sure that there was no way they were going to call me. Most of my interviews was dismissive, where I was like, look, guys, I don't really have any information for you that I think is significant to your case. Here's my details, here you go. And I was kind of flippant with my involvement, because I was, very clear that I didn't see any aggression. I didn't see any signs that are overtly clear that she was in distress. And, in the signs that I did see, I only recognized them in hindsight of after the allegations came about. So I was extremely surprised to even being called to testify, because myself, the majority of the time, I didn't think my interaction was significant in any way, shape, or form.
Did you have any more contact with Cassie Ventura after you stopped meeting with them?
I did not. I tried to, halfway through, when I realized who they were, I was trying to be extremely respectful and respecting their privacy on every level. I was a fan of Mr. Combs growing up, and I I had a great respect for him. So in terms of having any outside interactions with what I believed was his, loving companion, I thought they were, based on seeing their Instagram page, it looked like they were in a loving relationship. And I felt any contact with her outside of that environment would have been disrespectful.
Tax day has passed, but for millions of Americans, that's where the trouble begins. The IRS is now ramping up enforcement for those who missed the April deadline or still owe back taxes. Well, today's sponsor, Tax Network USA, can still help. If your books are a mess, if you're self-employed, or if you're a business owner, Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track quickly. They say the IRS is applying enforcement pressure at levels they've never seen before. But even after the deadline, it's not too late to take control. The consultation is completely free. Acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/peers. That's tnusa.com/peers. Let Tax Network USA make the next move, not the IRS. You saw Sean Diddy Combs in court. You never caught his eye in the whole time that you were interacting with him and Cassie Ventura. Did you catch his eye in court?
In all honesty, coming in, I avoided eye contact to any degree. It was a very nerve-wracking situation for me initially. It's just no matter how much you prep, no matter what you think about it, there's nothing that can really prepare you for that circumstance. And I am aware that I'm testifying for the prosecution, and my testimony can be very damaging to his future and what the rest of his life looks like. So I avoided eye contact. But at the end of the day, after my testimony, which was just the truth, and it's been emphasized to me since I got involved to just tell the truth. That's all I care about. As long as I tell the truth, is fine. I felt confident leaving the courtroom. I did look at him directly. There was no intense stare or anything or whatever. He kind of acknowledged me. I acknowledged him, and that was it. So that gave me relief because, again, I'm testifying is something I don't have a choice in, and I felt that I told the truth based on my involvement, without any bias, without any influence of opinion, ideology, and I'm at peace with that. I believe that was based on my integrity. That's what was asked of me, and I felt like that's what I represented myself as doing.
I mean, Sheree, what an extraordinary moment that is for you, where after spending 2.5 years in their orbit, Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura, and maybe as many as a dozen encounters in hotel rooms where you never had eye contact with this globally famous rapper as you had sex with his girlfriend, you finally get eye contact in a courtroom as you're testifying for the prosecution against him in a case that may determine whether he's going to keep his liberty or his career or anything else. As you say, you grew up as a fan of his in Harlem. That is a moment, isn't it? A remarkable moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, just you pointing that out, something I hadn't really connected, but that is, in fact, exactly what it is. That was literally the first time I've had eye contact with him, and this is such a powerful moment, and in a moment that is really life or death for him. It's definitely surreal. It's definitely. I get some sort of an anxious feeling just thinking about it, and it's tough, man. It's tough. Me personally, just the idea of my experience and my testimony or whatever being something that can tip the scale away into justice or the proper outcome for either person involved, the victims or him being accused, is just something I would like to not had to be an influence or a factor in.
Just finally, there's been a lot of online speculation, as there is about everything, and a lot of it is nonsense, obviously, but there's been speculation that you and Cassie developed a kind of emotional bond, as well as a physical one in the period that you were seeing her with Diddy there. What's your view of that? I mean, could you have completely detached sex with a woman in that way for that period of time over 2.5 years and not have some kind of emotional bond with her?
So I was asked about that during cross-examination, and I spoke to it and said I believe it was taken out of context. I think where the emotional part of this was interpreted was I did take a sense of pride. Like I felt special because I believed that this scenario was isolated to me and their interaction. And my initial conversations with Cassie was, hey, I want to call you back because I'm comfortable with you. So me hearing that and having this fantasy of me being the special guy that they call on, and then her cordial interactions and stuff, I was grateful. I was fond. I was flattered. Right? It was a ego stroke, if I can just be honest as a man, that this beautiful woman is choosing me, and that was my assumption. So there was gratitude. There was a positive vibe that was extremely happy and appreciative to be in that position, the way that I interpreted at the time. And I think me trying to explain this to investigators might have got misconstrued into me developing a romantic connection. I never thought my interactions with her was something that could infringe on the bond between her and Mr. Combs. So I was just grateful to be chosen and comfortable and looked at as an option for this fantasy fetish that they were trying to create.
It's a remarkable story, and you're a remarkable part of it. I think you spoke about it with great eloquence and honesty, and I really appreciate you coming on to Uncensored and talking to me about it. So, Sheree Hayes, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
The rapper Tory Lanez is serving a 10-year jail sentence for shooting and wounding Megan Thee Stallion. Last week, he was stabbed 14 times by another inmate in a California prison, causing both of his lungs to collapse. Many in the rap community and beyond want Lanez to be released. They say he's not safe, but he didn't get a fair trial. A petition calling on California Governor Gavin Newsom to pardon him was shared by Drake this week and has 340,000 signatures. Well, the case has divided the hip-hop world from the outset, with many of his biggest stars taking opposing sides in a very public feud between Megan Thee Stallion and Lanez. But is there more to this case than a popularity contest linked to a serious crime? Well, joining me now are Sonstar Peterson, Tory Lanez's father, and Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Well, welcome to both of you. Mr. Peterson, thank you very much indeed for coming on Uncensored. And first of all, I was, like everyone, very shocked to hear about what happened to Tory in prison. He's sustained a lot of injuries. Can you just start by telling me how he is?
Yes. First of all, Piers, thank you for having me on. Thank you for having us on. And it's an honor to meet you, sir. Right now, my son is recovering, and we're thankful for that. We thank God for that. This was a very brutal, unprovoked situation, and I know that many people like to speculate a lot of things, and when we don't have facts on the internet, people sort of provide their own, and some people, I guess, are well-meaning, but there's just a lot of misinformation that goes out. However, I'm thankful that he is recovering very well at this time, and so we're grateful. We're very thankful for his recovery. Not for the grace of God, my son could have been out of here. So we are very, very thankful right now.
The person who attacked him is, I believe, serving a considerable prison sentence for killing somebody before. Do you believe it was a deliberate attempt to kill your son? And do you have any idea yet, from any information you've gleaned, as to whether what the motivation for that may have been, or whether it's connected at all to the reason why he's in prison to start with? I
wouldn't want to speculate on what the person's motivation is, because motive comes from deep within somebody's heart, and so I don't have a window to that. However, you know, I wouldn't say that it has. Honestly, sir, I really just can't. I can't speak to the motive. It would be impossible for me to be able to speak to that person's motive.
Now, everybody knows how much I enjoy my tea, and I'm very happy to say that today's show is sponsored by Pique's Pure Fermented Teas. These are not your average brews. They're sourced from 250-year-old wild trees in the Himalayan foothills, which are untouched by modern farming. No pesticides, no fertilizers, just nature at its best. Pure delivers a full spectrum of prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics, just like the fermented foods found in longevity hotspots. It comes in crystal form, so there's no messing around. Just dissolve, sip, and feel the difference. It's trusted by health experts, including Cassie Means and Dr. Mark Hyman. There's teas for all occasions, and they all support your gut health, metabolism, and cellular renewal. The next time you put the kettle on, ask yourself, is my tea working as hard as me? Pique's Pure Fermented Teas, for the gut of a Brit and the longevity of a Himalayan monk. Get 20% off for life, plus a free frother and glass beaker with the Pure Bundle. Visit piquelife.com/peers. That's Pique, Pique, life.com/peers. Have you spoken to your son, since, I presume you have, since he was attacked?
Oh, yeah. We've spoken on several occasions. My family, we come together and we pray on a daily basis. This has been pretty well 5 years now, almost 5 years since this whole incident ever came to the public's attention. And since that day, we come together sometimes, most times twice a day, wherever we are in the world. We are on a phone call and we pray. And thankfully, a lot of times he is able to join us. He will, call in from the prison tablet, and we're able to come together and we pray. So since the situation happened, my wife and I, we were able to be with him from the very first day that we heard. This incident happened about 6:30 in the morning, and then by the time we were cleared to go in to see him at the hospital, by the time we got in, it was about 1:30 that afternoon. We spent practically the whole afternoon with him, following day, and then the next day after that, when he was discharged and went back. So, yeah, I've been in pretty well constant contact with him.
Before I move on, I just want to ask you, are you 100% convinced that your son did not commit the shooting for which he's serving this sentence?
I'm absolutely convinced. I've always been convinced. And a lot of the evidence that had been suppressed over the years, a lot of shenanigans that went on in the courtroom, are now coming to light. There's been so much foul play. And I'm not just saying this as some sort of pissed off parent. I mean, one of the things, just by way of an example, and I know that our attorneys have spoken to this, they have laid out things line by line. And I want to even take this moment this is the first time I'm meeting Representative Luna face to face. I want to thank you for the masterful job you've done getting in, out over the last little while, over the last couple of days on your, on your platform, so that people can know exactly what happened. But let me tell you, from a parental standpoint, a parental observer of my son walking through this, I'll never forget the day when we're sitting outside of the courtroom getting ready for court to reconvene. And imagine the only independent witness, which should have been the only objective witness in this case, was a gentleman by the name of Sean Kelly. Interestingly enough, the only person that would be able to have an unbiased viewpoint of what actually happened. Imagine that the prosecution did not want to call that witness. Why? This is the only independent witness, but yet you don't want to call this person because obviously his bird's eye view will not support what you want the narrative to be. And so when we sat outside, my wife and I, we saw this gentleman come in and we sat down and it was identified for us that, oh, this is Mr. Sean Kelly. He's sitting across from us on the other side of the hallway. And as we sat there, the prosecution came out, one of their detectives or investigators rather, and one of the prosecutors, they took this gentleman, they went upstairs, I believe it was to the 14th floor at that time. By the time this man came down, the witness they did not want to call, this man came down and his testimony became so embellished with other nonsense that people who saw it just looked at it and said, this is crazy. So I saw these kind of things going on all throughout this case. People trying to bury evidence, not trying, burying evidence, a judge that refused to allow certain things to come into the courtroom or to be said and was totally biased on the part of the prosecution. So the whole thing just stunk of a setup.
Just one last question, because you've made me think of this. But if your son was not responsible for Megan Thee Stallion being shot, we do know that indisputably she was shot. Who shot her?
First of all, the whole idea of her being shot is a speculation. That's a speculation. It's to this point has not been proven that she was even shot. And I want to make it really clear because I'm asked questions a lot as it regards to Megan. Megan is a young woman. I'm a father. I don't have any animosity to this girl at all. We pray for her. I've said that publicly on several occasions. My son included in our prayers. We have prayed for her on many occasions. So anything that I have to say is not to put her down, make her look like this person or that person. But the reality is that in all of this, how can you have a situation where in pretrial, the police, LAPD, says that the bullet fragments they had collected from the hospital just mysteriously vanishes. It goes missing. I would think that evidence is something that is protected in any police department, but they just mysteriously go missing. So there's no bullet fragments to be presented at trial. You have a situation where a gun is shot, and the gun, which is supposed to be your main piece of evidence, does not even show up at court, but some picture of a weapon that resembles or is the type of weapon they say that was used. The weapon does not show up at court. There is absolutely no, we hear this point of 0.1% of his DNA on the gun. Do you know what that actually means when you investigate it? That over 1.5 billion black people on the planet could have been their DNA. Yet my son is convicted for having used this gun, where an expert witness from the LAPD gets in there and he testifies as an expert of how many pounds of pressure it takes to shoot this gun and to shoot it 1, 2, 3 times and on and on and on. Yet the only evidence you have could fit the profile of 1.5 billion black people on planet Earth. The whole thing stinks of a conspiracy and it stinks of a cover-up.
Okay, let me turn to Representative Luna. You've taken up this case and you've done it at a time when Drake has shared a petition to have Tory Lanez released. Chris Brown posted Free Tory on his Instagram story. Kanye West has supported his release as well. I want to play, before I get your explanation for why you've taken up this case. I want to play, this is a version of events from Megan Thee Stallion herself, from her own documentary about what she says happened.
We left to go home. I was in the car with Tory and his driver and Kelsey. We are all arguing. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I knew I was talking shit, and he probably was a little offended. I tried to get out the car one time. I'm over this shit. They was like, Megan, get back in the car, get back in the car. We almost to your house. I get out the car again. I ain't even got shit on. I just got on a swimsuit. And I'm walking off, and this motherfucker just started hollering at me. He was like, dance, bitch.
It's a very dramatic sort of recounting there in animated form of what happened. She then talked about it again in an interview with Gayle King on CBS, the morning show there, in 2022. Let's take a look at this.
So I get out the car and it's like everything happens so fast. And all I hear is this man screaming, he said, dance, and he started shooting. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like he shot a couple of times. And I was so scared. I didn't even want to move. I didn't want to move too quick. Like, cause I'm like, oh my God, if I take the wrong step, I don't know if he can shoot something that's like super important. I don't know if he could shoot me and kill me. Like.
And the final clip I want to play, this is where in her own documentary again, she talks about that interview and admits she may not have been entirely truthful. Let's take a look at this.
Yes, bitch, I lied to Gayle King, bitch. First of all, I didn't know that bitch was even gonna ask me about that shit, but she's always want to talk about this shooting. Why'd you ask me about fucking Tory? That's not what this is about. Even if I was, I fucked once, maybe twice on a drunk night, but you kept catching me out of my fucking mind.
Now, I don't think you need to be a conspiracy theorist, Representative Luna, to see there's a lot of inconsistency going on here. She denied to Gayle King that there was any relationship with Tory. She then admits that there had been, that she lied. She doesn't admit to lying about the circumstances of the shooting, but certainly this goes to the heart of her veracity. Why have you taken up this case?
Well, first of all, Piers, thank you so much for having us on to discuss this. And I just want to applaud you and your outlet for actually being able to showcase some of the facts here. Look, I don't have any connections to the rap industry, Mr. West, Mr. Brown. The only people that I really know involved in this are Miss Amber Rose, who actually initially flagged this for me and connected me with Tory's attorney. And when I looked at the evidence, and remember, I'm a member of House Oversight and Accountability, and I actually am the chairwoman of a task force that conducts investigations, most notably into the assassination of John F. Kennedy. So I'm all about the facts. And what I can tell you is that the evidence in this case overwhelmingly speaks to the fact that Mr. Lanez is actually being incarcerated, I would say, as an innocent man. And what I can tell you is, even to your question on what happened with who indeed may have pulled the trigger and, allegedly shot Megan Thee Stallion. Look, I don't know Miss Stallion, but what I can tell you is that the evidence says that there are no bullet fragments and that there are x-rays that the legal team, Mr. Lane's team, actually has that we'll be presenting. What I can also tell you is based on the evidence that I've seen, again, that number 0.01% DNA match, alleging that it's Mr. Lane's, when in actuality, they actually did not choose to test the other 4 individuals there. No fingerprints found on the magazine. By any arguable case, if this was a murder trial, he would actually be acquitted because there is no evidence. And so what I will tell you is, one of the things that people ask is, well, why are you getting involved as a federal representative when this is a California state? He's not from, Florida here, or he's not represented by a Florida member of Congress. What purview do you have? And what I will say, Piers, is that I have a platform and I have the ability on a federal level to impact prison reform. And what I can tell you is everything in this case, I don't believe that he was actually given due process. process. I believe it was a stacked trial. I believe the evidence speaks for itself. And I am willing to actually cross party lines to work with the Democrats to secure pardon from Governor Newsom's office. And we're currently in the process of setting up talks with Governor Newsom. I do think that he's going to do the right thing. I think that the evidence speaks for itself. You know, I didn't know that Drake had posted that petition, but what I will tell you is that that was the right thing for him to do. And I hope more women specifically in the rap community can come forward and speak to this truth, because as you heard from Ms. Stallion herself, she admitted to lying to Gayle King. And what I will also tell you is I'm also have been informed that there's actually ring footage, and that will likely also be released here pretty soon. I know we are helping to put the evidence out there to the American people. But I do believe that this is really a terrible case, and what was done to this family is unacceptable. And I will be continuing to push for his full pardon. I think that people owe them an apology. And furthermore, I'd like to finally say this. So I actually spoke to Mr. Lanez on the phone in prison yesterday, actually. And he is actually going to get very involved in criminal justice reform to ensure that this doesn't happen to other people, because in his case, he has an incredible family supporting him. He has the financial backing to fight this, but many people don't. And so that's where we are going to continue to champion these causes at the federal level, even all the way to the White House and in Washington, D.C.
Well, I mean, I'd love to talk to him myself. It does sound a fascinating story. Just before I let you go, just to be clear, do you actually think a gun was fired at all then? Or could that in itself be in question? And if it was fired, who do you think fired it?
You know, I don't know who fired it, but what I will tell you is that based on the evidence that I've seen and that the Tory's attorneys will be presenting to the American people, I think that there are a lot of things in question. And I would say that, look, Piers, you know that I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I grew up in a very rough area. I was at a high school where there was a gang shooting. When someone gets shot, there's evidence of that. My husband was shot in Afghanistan in 2014, and the evidence isn't lining up.
So you do not think she was actually shot?
I'm not a criminal investigator in that sense. So I'm just going to go on record for saying that the evidence as of right now is showing that there are no bullet fragments that have been presented, which I'll let people assume what they will on that.
Okay, so final question for you, Sonstar.
Can I speak?
Sonstar,
really,
I was going to come to you.
Can I just speak really quickly to that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting going back that there was a time when all of this nothing was really being said about it amongst the party that was there on that particular night. Then an article appeared in the Los Angeles Times, okay? It wasn't us that put it out. The Los Angeles Times spoke to the fact that a doctor, I believe it's a Lafredo, who was the emergency physician on duty that night when she was brought to the hospital, he said, and the Los Angeles Times carried it, that she sustained lacerations that were consistent with being cut by glass, okay? So somebody now went online and commented or said something about that fact that the Los Angeles Times carried this. This is when, from the other side now, she came out accusing my son, you shot me, you shot me, you shot me. Later on down, we have so-called expert testimony coming from a whole other doctor was not present that night about removing bullet fragments. And again, nobody knows where these bullet fragments are to this very day. There's just been a lot of lies, a lot of cover-up. And I believe this whole case has been about truth versus the politics of power. But the one thing about truth is light. You're never going to suppress it. You might keep it down for a while, but it's going to come out, and it's going to shine like the sunlight.
Do you have a final
Piers,
message?
If I could just...
Yes.
Yeah, if I could just follow up and say this, also to the reason why Mr. Lanez couldn't speak publicly to this is there's a gag order that was placed on him by the team bringing charges. And when you don't have the ability to speak, that sends a pretty powerful message. And so part of my job is representing not just my constituents, but also ensuring that this doesn't happen in the future, and that's not right. So I'll speak the truth for him, and I'm going off facts. I'm presenting the evidence, and the people will decide. And I hope that Gavin Newsom does the right thing.
Okay, and just final question for you, Sonstar. Do you have a final message for Megan Thee Stallion? If she's watching this, she, of course, could actively get involved here in exonerating your son if she wished to, if that was the case, and she believed that she had misled people. What's your message to her?
I'm a believer in Christ, and my message is always the same to any human being, and that's love, that's compassion. I don't have an appeal to her or her team because I think that would be an exercise in futility. However, I do want to say on behalf of my son what the representative just said. This passion in his heart for criminal justice reform, prison reform, that didn't start because he got stabbed the other day 14 times. That has been something we have been discussing for a long time. This journey took me, many people are just getting to know who I am, but I've been in ministry for over 42, 43 years. I have ministered on various continents. Before I came back to North America at the top of 2018, I spent 7.5 years in Kenya. And that made me to become a father, not to just my children, but to many children. We call them spiritual children around the world. And when I saw him walking through this, we've met many inmates as a result of this. And you have people in this country right now that are imprisoned because of some dark age, medieval times attitude that says once a person is incarcerated, they become like a leper. They become like the offscouring of society. Nobody cares about them. In the medieval times, they would parade these people down the street in a cart and they would throw rotten cabbages, tomatoes, and anybody that was locked away in the Tower of London or the Bastille in France or wherever, they were the offscouring of society. We still maintain that attitude up to this day, whether we realize it or not, how we treat people. But these are people, and their souls are being bartered and traded by billionaires who are making so much money from the federal government to keep these people in prison, and they are not being treated. The amount of money these people are making is more than enough to make sure that they are treated properly and rehabilitated. But we consistently create this atmosphere of criminality that pushes people to commit more crimes while they're inside. They're released. They come out worse because their minds are so frayed from the trauma that they go through. We can do something about this. We are a society with resources, with means. We can do much better. And so that's why my son is going to stand on the forefront of helping people. We don't believe that violent criminals should be out, hurting people and all the rest of it. But there are a lot of people who are innocent in prison. And then there are a lot of people who have been put in prison and been given undue sentences because they are black, because they are brown. This stuff needs to stop. And we have the power as a community to stop it.
Mr. Peterson and Representative Luna, thank you both very much indeed for coming on Uncensored. I appreciate it. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.